Welcome back to the channel, guys. We are going to be digging into a very exciting topic. As you see behind me, I've got a bunch of my miter saws out. We're gonna finally dive into miter saws, miter saw accessories, miter saw stands, miter saw wings, my custom miter saw stop blocks. I'm gonna show you how I get my miter saw to be at an absolute, the highest elite level possible so that you can do the best work, be the most productive, and make the most amount of money possible with your miter saw station. The first rule with miter saws in a profitable business: standardize, standardize, standardize. It's no big deal whenever you're just a one-man show and you're just using one saw every day, but once you get multiple employees out in the field and you've got a handful of saws and stands and wings out there, you want everything to work together cohesively so that each wing fits each saw. Every employee is used to the different saws, knows how to use them, and the accessories go together as well. I've spent so much time accessorizing miter saws over the years, I'm kind of done with it. I want to just get a saw up and running the best as possible, as quickly as possible, and then move on with life. So at this stage, that's why I have all DWS 780s in the field, and I try to keep my wings and stands all the same as well. Let's look at some of the add-ons that I like to do to every saw before I put them out into the field. One of the first issues that we have is we're going to be cutting baseboard in the vertical position out in the field. Most of what we install is 5 1/4 inch tall baseboard. Sometimes we get up into taller baseboard. In that case, we'd be cutting it flat. But whenever we're doing production work, we want to be able to cut our baseboard vertically if possible. That creates a problem because the stock fences on most miter saws are lower than what I need for 5 1/4 baseboard. These are about 4 3/4, so we need some auxiliary fences. Now, many of you have seen in the past, I've bolted a piece of aluminum onto my stock fences. That works. There's some problems with that. I'm not going to get into all of those for the sake of not making the video too long. But a couple years ago, FastCap came up with an incredible alternative that's just plug and play. And you can order this, and it's an auxiliary fence, and it perfectly matches the saw. And all you got to do is purchase it, slide that puppy in, and now you've got an auxiliary fence that is 5 7/8 tall, perfect for baseboard, perfect for taller crown in the nested position. It's also got a built-in crown stop, which I'll show you in a second. But the thing I love about this is these fences stay flush with the lower base of the stock fence. And that's critical for using with my custom stop block on mitered casing. We'll get more into that detail in a later video, but this is absolutely huge for me, because the way I used to have to do it is whenever I switched to doing casing with my stop block, I would have to take these fences off every time because it adds this thickness to the front of the fence, and that throws off the stop block because of how the saw's pivot point works with that. That's kind of an advanced concept. We're not going to dig too far into that, but crown stop fences by FastCap are essential. Another great feature of these crown stop fences is they have this built-in crown stop. And this nests right on the back of the fence, and it'll just stay there until you need it. It's got a set screw on it. And then if you want to do some quick crown work, you can set this stop to the projection that you need for your crown molding, and then just slide your crown in the nested position, bump it right up to the bottom of the stop, and you can cut crown like that. And it's really quick and easy, and it stays right on your saw. Very easy to use those. One of the other key reasons I prefer these crown stop fences is because they're so easy to take on and off. They slide right on and off. Whereas whenever I have these auxiliary fences with the aluminum piece on the front, there's a lot more friction, and it's just harder to get them to slide on and off. And then sometimes you'll get sawdust built up in there, and it feels like you can't hardly get them on and off. So it does work, but I find these to be so much nicer. And I love the fact that I can just buy them and literally I don't have to do anything to them, just slide them on and you're done. Next key thing I like to do is remove the stock blade that comes with the saw. This is a 60-tooth blade, just a basic blade. We want to put on a higher quality blade for doing professional work, and I like a tooth count between 80 and 100. Either one will work. 80 is going to be a little bit more aggressive and cut through material a little bit quicker. 100 is going to give you a little bit less splintering. For a long time, I've been running the FS Tool SM6300 blade. It's a 12-inch, 100-tooth blade, and you can get 10 sharpenings out of a blade like this, and I can run a blade like this constantly in the field for 6 months before it needs resharpened, assuming you aren't cutting nails and stuff like that with it. I've since moved over to forest blades a little bit more. The problem I was having is the FS Tool blades were getting so expensive, over 250 bucks a blade. I started using these Forest Chopmaster blades. I've had great results with them. They can be resharpened a lot of times also, and they work really well. When you put a high quality blade on the saw, it's going to deflect less, it's going to spin a lot truer, and the carbide on the cutting surface, on the teeth, is going to last a lot longer and allow you to get multiple resharpenings. So my philosophy is I tend to buy higher end blades that I can resharpen a lot of times. A tip with blades, you're going to buy blades that are higher end and they're going to come in their own boxes, and you're going to want to ship them to your sharpener in these boxes. So I try to save them all, keep them organized. These little file folder hangers you can get off Amazon, and they work super good for just organizing blades, and they're very cheap also. The next accessory you don't even have to buy whenever you purchase the DWS 780. It is the light that is on the saw. Now, not only does that help you see what you're cutting, it does something extremely important, and it allows you to see your cut line, because it casts a shadow down both sides of the blade. So then whenever you're coming down with the blade, you see the shadow, and that tells you exactly where you're going to be cutting. That is essential for lining up your workpiece with your pencil marks, and it's extremely fast. A blade light is by far the best cut line system in my opinion. I hate lasers. Now it's a little bit confusing. Dewalt actually has two 12-inch sliding miter saws, the 779 and the 780. All of these saws are the 780. I recommend purchasing the 780. It's a little bit higher end and it comes with the light on the saw. Sometimes the 779 has the light, sometimes it doesn't, but you absolutely want to have the light if you're a professional. Don't try and save $100 by not getting the saw with the light. I just recommend purchase the 780 and you'll be good to go. Next up, zero clearance inserts. This is the stock insert that comes with the miter saw. You'll notice there are a variety of inserts that I have on my saws, but I do like to change out the stock insert. One of the key advantages of a zero clearance insert is it narrows this space right here, so you don't have stuff falling down in this crack nearly as much. Now, you will notice you do have to change out your inserts over time. This one's been used for way too long. The gap is very wide. This is a cauliflower insert. However, it's not my favorite insert. This is aluminum on the outside, and then this is an insert that can be removed and replaced, so you'll just buy extras of these, and it works pretty good. The insert that I prefer to use is one of these guys here. So it's just a very basic piece of that HDPE, I think you call it, type plastic material, and you'll pop it right in the saw, and then you'll make a cut with it, and it'll give you a perfect zero clearance insert. Again, you can see this one's been used quite a bit, so it's getting a little bit wider. However, this is going to stop small pieces from falling down in here. I will give a shout out to Custom Fabricating Solutions. That's where I purchased these zero clearance inserts from. I'll put a link in the video description below. They work great and they're a very reasonable price point on those. Custom Fabricating Solutions also has these aluminum fences that I used for a long time. If you do prefer to have an add-on aluminum fence versus the crown stop fences, Custom Fabricating Solutions is a great place to get those. The next essential item is a sawdust hood. I like this one from Fast Cap. It fits into a nice compact bag and folds away nicely, and it's easy to store in the van. Now, is a sawdust hood like this absolutely essential? Yes and no. I really like, if we're gonna be deployed on a large trim job, I like to have a dust hood installed. There are a couple reasons for that. One, a miter saw like this, it's gonna shoot sawdust a very long distance behind the saw, and after you do a lot of cutting, everything behind that saw is covered in sawdust. A hood like this captures all that sawdust, keeps it collected in one area, and just keeps the job site and work area a whole lot cleaner. You can also run a hose up through this and still connect your vacuum hose to the saw if you want to do that, and it'll really capture all the sawdust. The other key feature is that a lot of times we're cutting with big glass windows or glass doors that are extremely expensive behind us. A lot of times we're cutting small pieces of wood, the blade will grab a hold of that and send it flying like a missile. It'll crack glass doors, glass windows, extremely expensive. You do not want that to happen. This adds a big safety net behind the saw so that that really can't happen. And for that reason, it's essential if you're going to be set up with the back of your saw facing glass to have a hood like this. The saw hood unfolds and just drops right down into the holes that are on the back of your miter saw. It's got adjustability here. You can fit it just how you want it, and it'll fit to a variety of different saws if you don't have this saw. Down here at the bottom, it opens up so you can put a bucket right under here, or you can just let the sawdust fall down to the floor, or a lot of times I'll pull this drawstring tight and closed, and all that sawdust will just collect right in the hood, and then I'll just open it up and clean it up once in a while. I will tell you, this saw hood is brand new. As you can see, it doesn't have a speck of sawdust on it yet. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this off. You can see it's fairly easy to take off. A little bit awkward, but not too bad. But it folds up pretty nicely. You want to go ahead and just let it collapse like that, and then you're just going to twist it around and put it back in the bag. I like this particular model of saw hood because it does, condense down into this bag, and it's pretty easy just to hang on my bulkhead wall in the van then, and it doesn't take up much space in the van. If you've watched my videos for very long, you know I almost always have I do always have a vacuum to the side of my miter saw. That's because we always have to have a sander running to be sanding our millwork to make sure that it's good before we put it on the wall. Should you have another vacuum or use the same vacuum for your miter saw, that's completely up to you. On the job site, I tend to just use the sawdust hood and call it good enough. I don't typically hook the vacuum up to the miter saw. It's just too many different vacuums to be on site, and I'm using the sander often enough. I would be switching back and forth all the time, and I just don't find it's necessary. That being said, if I had a situation where I was just doing a whole bunch of miter saw work, maybe cutting a bunch of MDF or something, and I wasn't going to be needing to use my sander a whole lot, I wouldn't be opposed to just taking my hose and putting it on the back of this saw. But for the most part, I don't use a vacuum on my miter saw. I just let it fly. Next key feature I've got to make sure I have is a crown stop of some kind on each miter saw. Now, as I already mentioned, with these crown stop fences, I do have a smaller crown stop that I can use right here on my fences. That works great, but if I've got a bunch of crown to do, I like to have a continuous fence across the front of my saw. There's different ways to do that with different saws. Fast Cap has their own brackets here where you can add these onto their best fence system. It just clips onto the bottom and then you can tighten it. That would work. On my custom wings, I've got a T-track mortised into my wings so that I can put my own plywood auxiliary fence across and just secure it with some T-bolts. That works really well also. We'll dig into details like that in the future build videos on these miter saw wings. But point being, before you put a saw in the field with a stand, make sure that you've got a way to have a continuous crown support for cutting crown in the nested position. That pretty much concludes our direct miter saw unit upgrades. Hopefully that's been helpful in this video. There's a whole lot more that we've got to cover with miter saw stands and wings and stop blocks and cutlass holders and things like that, but that's for a different video. You will notice on all of my saws, my stand of choice is the Dewalt folding stand. I prefer the larger one, and then I like to attach all my saws with these Dewalt brackets. Works really good. You will notice here I've also got the Dewalt compact folding miter saw stand. It's nice also, but I prefer the longer stand for a variety of reasons, which we'll touch on in future videos. It gives you more support further out, which helps to sturdy up your wings a lot more, and it works great with the Fast Cap Best Fence wings as well as my custom miter saw wings. So my standardized miter saw stand is the longer stand from Dewalt, and then I like to just stand it up in my van vertically and store it right in the back of the van up against my plywood partition at the rear door. It works really well. My miter saws are all set up and standardized to be used with two systems. One, my large custom miter saw wings, which you see here, which we're gonna build in a future video. And two, the Fast Cap Best Fence wings, which are another great alternative to custom wings. If you just need to buy something and get it up and running, you can't beat the Fast Cap Best Fence wings. I prefer the true customization that I get with making my own wings and the support that I get from them. They're larger and it just works better for me most of the time. So we're gonna cover that more in future videos. Be sure to stay tuned. I'm excited for this series. The DWS 780 has been my workhorse for a long time and it continues to be. It's a great saw and I'd recommend it to all you guys.